Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, here we go. Sorry we're a little late, folks. We had an executive session prior. Any comments or statements from the public? You can form a line at the mic. Okay. Seeing none. Danny Marks, I believe, is in the room with his entourage. There he is. Mr. Marks, good evening.
How are you?
Wonderful. What do you got for us today?
Let's see. All right. First of all, I want to thank you guys for letting me be the school committee liaison for the last 2 years. It's been a great pleasure, and I've had a lot of fun watching you guys and being a part of it also. It's been a lot of fun. I want to thank you guys. Also, I want to apologize for not making it to every meeting, but thank you anyways. We'll start with the guidance events. Tomorrow is scholarship night. It's going to be hosted by Mr. Ruel at 6 o'clock in the auditorium. On August 28th from 5 to 7 p.m. there's going to be a freshman cookout, and they're going to be inviting parents and incoming freshmen for orientation at the high school. They'll also give them their class schedules, a tour of the building, and they're going to go over high school expectations. The guidance department also, under the watch of Mr. Ruel, held the Memorial Garden service in which we honored those lost from the high school, and it was a great service. I want to thank everyone who helped out in the Memorial Garden, the students and the staff also. Also, we had the guidance department under the leadership of Ms. Medeiros and Mrs. Plord held a Stay in the Game conference here at the high school. Stay in the Game is a conference that we've attended 2 years, the last 2 years, in which student athletes and also student leaders have gone and learned how to be better leaders and make good decisions. And this year, unfortunately, there wasn't funding for the conference at Gillette Stadium, which is where it's usually held. So the guidance department decided to have a little Stay in the Game conference here with the leaders, in which we came together and we kind of made a guideline for what we can do to better a Stay in the Game conference and have one here. Also we made a guideline, like a welcoming packet for the incoming freshmen. So that was a lot of fun. It was a good time. Also, our foreign exchange student Sophia Weiner is departing today, or is already departed. She participated in 2 sports here, varsity sports, volleyball and tennis, and she had a very successful experience. I personally knew her. She loved Westport High. She was excited to go home, but she was very sad because of the amount of friends that she made and the great experience she's had here at Westport High School. So I want to thank her for her participation, for her coming here. The yearbook, which is right here, this is actually my yearbook. It's distributed. You guys can pass it around, take a look if you want to. And the feedback was good. All the seniors love it. Everybody who ordered one loves it. And we want to thank the yearbook committee for their very hard work. The student council, we approved the expenditure for field day festivities tomorrow, which will be run by the Advocates. And also the student council will be holding class elections under the class advisor's supervision. And that's going to be by the end of this year, so that way they can already start next year within the first couple of weeks, have a meeting, and get next year all started. The Advocates have been extremely busy. They held the Special Olympics for track and field at Dartmouth High School. Also, they sold autism T-shirts in April and May. I don't know if any of you guys have seen them. Let's see. In June, they just completed the Special Olympics basketball event for the entire Westport community. That was a great success. I was happy to be a part of it. I went, and it was great to see all the kids from the RISE program and just everybody participating, the students being a part of it, helping them out, and they really had a good time. The students had a good time. The staff had a good time. It was a great. The Advocates did a great job. The Advocates also held a Westport High School talent show for the first time in a couple of years, and that was a great success. We got to see acts that we didn't really know were talented in those ways. So that was a great great experience to see students step up and really gain the courage to go in front of their peers and just do their talent. So that was great. And also tomorrow, the Advocates will be holding the field day, and also the video yearbook for the seniors. The art club, there was an art show a few weeks ago displaying the students' work in the cafeteria. I don't know if any of you guys saw, but there was some great works of art there. We have very talented students here at the high school in the art programs. The NHS, the members were given these T-shirts in honor of their participation. I'd pass it around, but I just put it through the wash, so it's kind of wet right now, to be honest. So, but this is what it looks like. So, thank you to Ms. Buckless for that great idea. She wanted to visually show who the leaders are and who people should look up to by giving T-shirts and the students wearing them throughout the high school. Let's see. Prom, 190 students went this year, which is up from last year, 165, so 25 students more. 20 teachers went. There was 10 for the food and 10 after the food, which is something new that they started. If teachers wanted to come just for the festivities, they could come and enjoy. Also, Rachel's gave us a great deal for being a homeschool, and we really want to thank them for being so gracious. And the senior class agrees that they offered a great, safe, close environment, and we're very proud to keep the money in our own economy. Senior projects, speaking of senior projects was a great success, and students did a great job. I'm not sure if you guys saw, but in the main lobby, my class, we took pictures and we made like a billboard of a slogan that basically summed up our senior project. I don't know where my yearbook is. If you open it, there's actually my picture in it of my little billboard.
Of course, it's your
Hey,
picture.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's the only one I had, but I did mine's on music education and lack of funding. If you want to just pass that around, my theme was broken music, broken dreams, concerning the music education and how important that is. Also, the seniors have graduation rehearsal practice tomorrow at 7:30 for the graduation this Saturday at 11:30. And we are very excited to graduate, and we would like to extend a big thank you to the staff, to Dr. Colley, to Ms. Tutelo, and and the school committee for making the last 4 years so accommodating and making Westport High School a school to really be proud of and to be a proud part of. In closing, the class of 2013 and I would gladly leave this high school knowing that when the NEASC results come back, our class will go down in history as one of the best WHS has ever had.
Wow.
So thank you very much once again for holding me and for letting me be the student liaison for the last 2 years.
Dan, did you want me to sign your yearbook?
You could.
I'm joking, I'm
Honestly,
joking, I'm
you
joking,
really
of
could
course.
if you want to. That'd be perfect.
Danny, the school committee, why don't you come over here? The school committee's, Daniel, presenting you with this certificate in recognition of his second year of outstanding service as a student representative to the school committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Tough act to follow.
I appreciate it. I hope one day I can work with you guys on the school committee.
Get out of here.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Good job, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay, that's going to be a tough act to follow.
I'll see you tomorrow. Right?
Okay. All right. Westport High School sports update. Mr. Pacheco? You have any pictures or posters to pass around?
I do not. Excuse my appearance. I didn't get as dressed up as Danny. In terms of an update on the spring sports that we have here, we had a successful spring, a very successful spring. Our baseball team finished in second place in the Mayflower Athletic Conference and qualified for the state tournament. Unfortunately, they lost a hard-fought 4-3 extra inning game out in Hyannis to Sturgis Charter School, the East, Sturgis Charter East. It was a great season. After not making the tournament in the previous year, it was good for them to come back and be as successful as they were. Softball had a bit of a disappointing year. Very young team. Out of 14 girls, 7 of them were freshmen. So they did struggle with inexperience. They unfortunately only won 2 games, but the future does look a lot better with the fact that we did get 7 freshmen to come out and play, and they stuck with it and played all season, although they took their lumps here and there. Boys tennis was the story of the spring. They had an undefeated regular season. They were 19-0. They won the Mayflower League championship, moved on to the state tournament where they received the first round bye. They won their second round match and their third round match, which was a hard-fought win against Norwell, who was very, very good, and then advanced to the South Sectional Final, where they eventually lost to Martha's Vineyard last Saturday. Martha's Vineyard is the defending state champion and pretty much a powerhouse in Division III boys tennis. So they had a great, great season. Girls tennis also had a great season. They also were undefeated Mayflower League champions at 9-0. They made the tournament, and unfortunately they didn't advance as far as the boys, but they definitely had a great season under a brand new head coach in Coach Kate Ross. And besides that was just our co-op sports. We had a good turnout for co-op track. We had 17 athletes that participated in co-op track for Bishop Conley, which I believe is much higher than usual. Although our lacrosse numbers were down a little bit, I think they're struggling a little bit with finding a steady head coach over at Conley. It's changed hands a few years in a row now, and some of the older kids on the team decided not to play this year. That's our 6 sports in the spring.
Jed, the numbers overall? Did
Numbers
they
overall,
tweak up a little?
They were up. They were up in the spring definitely, and overall on the entire year they were up as well.
Good.
Participation was very good, and as I said with softball and some of the other sports, the freshman participation was up, which obviously is good for the next few years.
Mr. Sullivan?
And last night you had your athletes awards night, and that seemed, I was able to catch part of it. Good group of athletes this year, and as mentioned, they made us proud under your leadership, and so congratulations for many good seasons in this year.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And Jason, you have in our packet, we have a tentative replacement schedule for the uniforms.
Mhm.
This was put together by yourself.
Yes. I created this. I know we had talked at one of the previous school committee meetings that I was at. There were some questions about uniforms and possibility of some of them being needing to be replaced, and also the fact that we wanted the lower levels, the JV levels, to match the varsity team uniforms as well. So I created this in terms of the sports that we have now, going by the years that they were last ordered, or the level of need that we're in to replace some of these sports. And I know that I had said at the school committee meeting that some of them, probably our oldest uniforms, might have been 6 or 7 years old, and I know that it was expressed that might be a little bit too old. So I went on a 5-year plan, where basically every uniform would be replaced by sport every 5 years. So in the fall, I will be ordering cheerleading uniforms for the winter. That is our major need, is cheerleading uniforms, and then the rest of the schedule kind of falls into place going around what's needed the most. Some of our outdoor sports, especially in the fall with soccer and field hockey, wearing white uniforms on a grass field, they wear a little bit quicker and get stained a little bit quicker. So those would definitely be next on the list. And our indoor sports are in pretty good shape with boys and girls basketball in the winter, and our spring uniforms are fairly new as well. So did create the schedule to go by. Obviously, if the funding is there and they're still in need at this point, I think it'll serve as a good guideline to go by to ensure that we have some decent-looking uniforms at all
Good.
times.
Good, because the kids certainly deserve them, that's for sure.
Sure.
Okay. Anybody have anything to add? Jay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, school committee goals. It's something that I've certainly talked about in the past, and another member brought it up to my attention again, and I thought it was important to put on the agenda. We seem to give everyone else goals, and I think it's important that the school committee get together and maybe put a set of goals together and work to that mean. Just FYI. So, anybody have anything to add to that, Melissa?
I agree, and I wonder if, I know in our policy there's some mention of it, but also doing an evaluation of the school committee, a self-evaluation of just, which kind of goes along with our goals, so then we can identify together.
So yeah, we could start looking into how. I'm sure other committees set goals.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's something we should definitely do moving forward. So, okay, Westport Middle School update, and it's Jason Knutson. Yes, please.
So my firm is hard at work, working away on a feasibility study of
To the mic. Is it on?
Yeah,
Is it on?
a feasibility
There
study
you go.
looking at Westport Middle School and determining what kinds of work would be required to keep it as an ongoing and functioning middle school, and going even beyond that to look at how it can be improved. Obviously, Westport put a considerable amount of effort into cleaning up the school in 2011, and all of that work and your ongoing diligence has allowed the school to keep on running. But there are, as you are aware, a number of materials that are still in place at the school that have not been removed, both what are called PCB bulk product materials, which are like the primary source materials, as well as a number of secondary sources, basically remediation waste, where direct contact with PCBs has penetrated into some more porous materials. We know that there are ideas about possibly shutting down the school. You're looking at a bunch of different options. Again, the value of this study is to look at what would need to be done to keep running the school if you had to, or if you chose to, and then again, what kinds of improvements can be made. And it's true that even though you've got an ongoing condition where students can be hosted, the EPA could require some more immediate action, and this study will give you some idea about what some of those steps might need to be. One thing we'll be looking at is a plan to remove all of the PCBs in the school, both the remaining source materials, which I'll talk about in a second, as well as secondary ones. And these are materials at certain concentrations where the EPA would require their removal to allow you ongoing and unrestricted use of the building. We're also going to look at a strategy of removing the primary source materials, but leaving in place and encapsulating safely some of the less concentrated secondary sources. That would certainly be a less costly option there, and we need to be sure that we take a look at that. We're also going to look at the work that you did in 2011 to remove a lot of the PCBs, such as the Tectum ceiling panels that were in most of the classrooms. Those panels played an important role as far as controlling sound in the classrooms, and right now, with those hard surfaces throughout, the classrooms are pretty difficult to hear in. So, you know, we want to look at sort of the damage that was done and figure out how to put it back so that it's a more functional school. We're also looking at other aspects of the school, systems and finishes that are near their lifespan or the end of their lifespan. Certainly the unit ventilators throughout the school are original to 1969, 1970 and are wearing down. And even things like the lockers being beat up. You know, we're going to put together basically a prioritized shopping list of improvements that can be debated and looked at closely. If there's any amount of further repair work or renovation work at the middle school, at some point you might be triggering some other mandated improvements. Examples include accessibility upgrades. I know that you've got an intensive study of Westport Middle School and its deficiencies as far as handicapped accessibility. If you end up spending a certain percentage of money to fix other things up, you will be forced to do a lot of handicapped improvements. Similarly, again, you might reach a threshold where a sprinkler system might need to be installed. So again, we're going to look at the impact of all those possible other improvements. And lastly, we want to take a look at just how the school operates now as a middle school. Do you have sufficient number of classes? Are the classrooms big enough? Do the facilities in the school support the educational program? Again, another thing that can help you determine whether or not it's even worthwhile to save, renovate, and keep using. And lastly, as part of that process, we are going to compare the current middle school to the current guidelines and standards of MSBA for building a brand new middle school to see how they shape up, both in terms of costs, but also the kinds of facilities that MSBA will provide reimbursement for. One thing right off the top is that they don't really reimburse for auditoria in middle schools. Westport Middle School has a very impressive auditorium, and if you built a new middle school, you would not likely be able to get reimbursement money for a similar kind of facility. So we want to be able to compare what a possible new middle school would look like compared to renovating the existing one. We're doing a lot of analytical drawing. We've got some great documents that Mike Duart was able to give us, the existing construction drawings that we're going over very closely. This is just an example here of the remaining Tectum ceiling panels with mastic that is still in place. As you're aware from Fuss and O'Neill's work, at the lower level, there are many ceiling-mounted unit ventilators that are hard up against the existing ceiling. Tectum was removed around those unit ventilators, but immediately above them, there's still that primary source material in place. So we're going to be studying the cost of taking down the equipment, removing what's remaining, and either put back the equipment or, as an option, replace it, again, given that it's near the end of its lifespan. There are also some areas on the upper level that have not been, that still have the Tectum in place, a large area near the kitchen and custodial area, and then basically all of the stairs to the exterior still have some Tectum in place. So this is just an example of the kinds of documentation we're doing to determine quantities. This is an example of us looking at the programmatic use of the existing middle school, classrooms, athletics. This is what we're going to use to compare your current building usage with MSBA standards and see how they weigh out. So again, this is just an example of what we're doing. It's certainly taking us a while to get into this. I'm still at the stage now of actually asking more questions than getting answers. So it's very interesting, and we're learning a lot, and I know that we're going to provide you with a great deal of information.
Jason, I think we were all under the impression we were going to have this study completed in spring, in the springtime. I mean, it doesn't seem like you're
We've
going to have it
our
done in the spring.
You're correct. We are much later at getting this done than we had anticipated and had proposed originally. We've had some projects in our office that have had some weird scheduling issues and road bumps along the way that we've had to address, and so I'm committing to finishing this work by July 5th and getting the report to you.
By July.
July 5th.
Any other comments, members?
Hello, Jason. I did like some of the analysis that was represented by some of the maps attached to that floor plan. In particular, the current regulations for classroom space, and while we may have a waiver in the existing building, as it triggers certain things, if we invest in the building, would have to upgrade it. So, as you've indicated, we're looking at all this, and you'll be coming up with some cost estimates for us on what it would be for us to continue use of this building. That's the scope of the work for the most part.
Yes.
And so I do like the direction it's going. I am glad to see that this is a map that you created based on what our facilities people were able to share with you.
Correct. We were able to translate some of the original construction documents, the old blueprints from '68, and put them into AutoCAD so we can layer different types of information on them and use it as a very helpful tool. It also helps us calculate quantities more easily than getting out a measuring tape or something.
So then that it probably added to the delays that we had. We had documents, but they were paper-based and years old, so now we've got some work in front of us here.
Exactly. And again, Mike Duarte has everything for the school, and it's pretty remarkable how close the original drawings are to what we see out there. It's a really great resource to us. We
Great.
still do have to do a lot of legwork at the site and peek around some corners and check up above some ceilings and stuff because we want to make sure that we aren't missing anything.
Jason, I would imagine this study would include the costs of monitoring the air and
Right. With the option to continue using the school, but not removing all of the secondary materials, that would require ongoing monitoring and a remediation plan. And we're working with Fuss and O'Neill to kind of determine like a yearly escalated price that would go with that.
Mr. Sullivan?
Question to the chair. Jason, what are the secondary materials that you're talking about?
Examples identified in the Fuss and O'Neill report include at the exterior windows, for instance, there are high concentrations of PCBs in the exterior caulk around the windows. And because of those high concentrations of source materials, the PCB caulking, the PCBs leached into the brick around the windows and the concrete beams across the head of the windows. Fuss and O'Neill has taken some readings. They've cored into the brick to see what the concentrations are in that material. They've done some coring into the concrete structure. So those are really good examples of what we'd call a remediation waste. And I call it a secondary source because it's not, there weren't PCBs in the material originally, it just leached in over time.
And question, Tony, for the board. It sounds like you've got an option, or you're studying an option to build a new school. Are we also studying the option of distributing, as you had previously discussed, breaking the school up and making use of existing buildings and adding on to buildings, renovating our other three schools?
Yeah, as part of the SOI we submitted was to leave the middle school, abandon the middle school, and expand the other buildings. If those SOIs don't come to fruition, if that doesn't happen, and we end up stuck in this building, that's what the study's for, is to. I mean, if it becomes impossible for us to stay there, then I guess the town will have no choice, and whether we have to pay for a new school on our own. So that's what the idea of the study was, to give us that number. Anything else? Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got it. Okay. Having some technical issues here. All right, next on the agenda, list of college attending. There's an extensive list here in our packet.
Can I just, I don't have a paper copy, and I can't access it. Thank you.
Shell, do you want to say a few words about the list? I know it's quite impressive, and I know our kids stack up to anyone else's.
I think the list is the same one you received just about a month ago.
Yeah.
It has not changed much, but so far we have we have 95, our senior class, that's 95 out of 110 students who have committed to a post-secondary, just not on.
Pull it closer.
We have about 95 of our 110 graduating seniors who have committed to a post-secondary option. We have a few more that are still, have not yet decided yet, or have not made up their mind. That's a little bit higher than it has been for the last couple of years, but as I often say, my class of 2013 is my powerhouse class. There's a lot of talent and ability in that class, so it does not surprise me that the percentage going on to college has in fact climbed up.
So just in case people didn't hear you, 95
Out
of
of
110 students
have
this
made
year.
a commitment. And there's still a few more, I think there's still a few more that we will learn.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, it is very good.
Okay, and again, it's a quite an impressive list of colleges, universities.
Yes, it is.
All right, so moving on to the Michael. I'm sorry.
Are we
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I know that there was much of this information previously, but I wasn't sure the student, one of the students that applied to Brown has been accepted and is attending?
Is attending, correct.
And there's a whole list of great colleges, but that was one I was kind of watching. I think the last time, I wasn't sure if it was listed that he had committed.
Yep, he had committed. In fact, he was an early decision, so
Oh,
he's been
okay.
committed for quite some time to go attending Brown University.
Great. Well, that's certainly great news, and I'm sure he's going to miss this place with the other 100 or so students.
Yeah.
Cheryl, what about the military? And
Um,
we have numbers?
We have one student, I believe, who is going into the military after leaving. And again, that's something that's been on his mind for quite some time.
Okay. Michelle?
I just have one question, is
Mhm.
do we ever look at, and I'll be honest with you, until I went through the process,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have even thought about this. Have we ever looked at, when a student is applying to a college, you can look at sort of a generic 60% of the kids are accepted, 40% of the kids, whatever. But some of the programs that our students are getting into have far lower acceptances. For example, the student at Brown, he applied to a very difficult program to get into or whatever. Do we ever look at that, at what programs our students are applying into? Because sometimes they can get denied from a particular program or accepted into a very difficult program with a 15%, 20% acceptance rate.
I think we look at it formally. I don't think that we've ever collected any data on it, but I think the guidance counselors tried to work very closely with the student and the family and give them some direction as to what would be a good match for them, not only in terms of a program, but also in terms of the size of the campus, the activities that
Sure.
happen on that campus. So I don't think we've ever collected it formally, though, but I think informally they work very closely to look
I'm
at those
just
things.
wondering if, say, we consistently saw, for example, students having difficulty getting into a particular program,
Mhm.
maybe we could take a look at that and
Mhm.
figure out what it is that maybe our students are missing, or maybe we have students consistently getting into particular programs and, and tweaking that to make it even stronger.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I wouldn't have even thought about it, I'll be honest with you, until I went through the process myself. But I wonder if maybe that just would give some of our students an edge in the future if we knew these kids getting into this program always do, but this program, we're not getting kids here.
Mhm.
What can we do to make them more successful?
I think it's a good point.
Just something that I didn't realize, honestly.
And so, Ms. Tudelo, the high school
School improvement.
plan.
Okay. So just a brief summary of the accomplishments we had this year. In terms of assessment, we did implement ELA, math, and science tutorials during the school day to provide targeted instruction for the MCAS test. We continue to administer common tasks in all of our courses. We continue to offer the PSAT during the school day to sophomores and juniors, and this year we had 168 students take the PSATs. We continue to offer the SAT prep class through a grant from the Westport Education Foundation. This spring we offered it both after school and in the evening to try to accommodate as many students as possible. Our PSAT scores, which we do already have, 2012, the national average for 11th graders was about 48 in critical reading, 48 in math, and 46 in writing. And for 10th graders, it was 43 in critical reading, 43 in mathematics, 41 in writing, and our average scores are right below. So we were at 47 in critical reading, 46 in math, and 46 in writing for 11th graders. And for 10th graders, we were at 43 in reading, 42 in math, and 41 in writing. So we're very close to, if not at, the national average in all three categories. Of course, results are still pending for our MCAS testing this year, the SAT results, and the AP tests, which were given in May. In the area of curriculum, 6 new units were added to make sure that they were aligned to the Common Core and the college and career readiness standards, and 72 units were revised for the same reasons. In the area of instruction, we have redesigned our RTI process to include Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 interventions at the classroom level, and we do collect data on that, on what's happening and how successful that is. And in the area of guidance, the guidance department has been working very closely with the Massachusetts Association of School Guidance Counselors, and they have started they did start the implementation of guidance seminars at each grade level, and then they also test the students pre and post, collect that data, and use that to make changes in future seminars. The area of school climate, we did implement a school-wide advisory program in grades 9 through 12. We had a successful NEAS visit in the spring. The official report will not be available until the fall, but based upon the feedback we received on the last day that the team was here, I thought the feedback was extremely positive. So my experience in working on NEAS teams will tell me that we can all expect a report that everyone will be proud of. And in the Race to the Top area goal, where we were looking at the graduation rate for special education students, last year we aimed for an increase of 3% in that subgroup, and our actual achievement was 8%. So we went from 50 to 58% in terms of graduating special education students. In terms of our collaborative partnerships, Mass Maritime Academy was added as a dual enrollment opportunity, and we had 2 students take advantage of a course at Mass Maritime this spring, including our young man that's headed off to Brown University in the fall. We just got the grades on both of those students, and professors had very wonderful things to say about both boys who participated in that. They also honored 2 of our students at a ceremony earlier in the year, recognizing them as STEM leaders in the school.
Nice.
Next year's goals, we want to continue to work on curriculum revision and the units of study. We need to create and validate district-determined measures. We plan to strengthen the pre-AP and honors level instruction by training teachers in grades 8 through 10 through the AP Summer Institute. And we will need, in the fall, we will need to review any recommendations from the NEASC report and develop a plan to implement those recommendations over the next 3 years. We were also asked to give an update on the status of our student handbooks. There will be a few minor changes in the Westport High School student handbook. You may recall that 3 years ago, 3 years ago, we implemented a different schedule. So for 1 year, that group of those students did not have the opportunity to earn 40 credits. They only earned 30 credits in that 1 year. So since that time, the graduation requirement has been at a total of 140 credits, but we are now back on a 40 credit earning system. So beginning with the class of 2015, that requirement should go back to 150 instead of 140 credits total for graduation. Superintendent also asked us to include the new security requirements in our handbook. These are requirements that have already been implemented in the spring, but we will add them to the handbook. Basically, all of the exterior doors to the building are locked all day long. The front door opens at 6:45 a.m. The student drop-off door in the rear of the building and the door where students are dropped off from the buses opens at 7 a.m. and the gym doors open at 7:15 a.m. And at each one of those doors, there is an adult supervising the entryway. At 7:35, all of those doors are locked again, and then the only entrance into the building is either from the front door with a buzzer system or the north door parking lot through a buzzer system. And those both have cameras at them so that the secretary at either desk can see who's at the door and release the buzzer to allow them to gain entry.
Cheryl, how do our requirements, graduation requirements, credits compare to other districts in the area?
Compared to other districts in the area, and I do have a spreadsheet, I did not bring it with me tonight, but I can certainly provide it to you. I can tell you that we have the highest credit earning requirement in the area. We require students to pass 95% of all classes that they take at Westport High School.
So we require our students to pass 95% of their
95%
courses.
of their courses. Area schools range from anywhere to 70 to 88% of their courses.
And
to
our
graduate.
graduation requirements are higher than our
They are
surrounding
higher.
communities.
They are.
That's just in case somebody didn't hear you.
Okay.
It's an
And,
echo in here.
And I will just add to that, and I apologize to my fellow administrators because they know this is one of my pet peeves and they hear me talk about it all the time. Not only is our rate higher, but what ends up happening to some of our students is that they reach a point where they realize they can go to a local night school and be done much sooner with fewer credit requirements and still have a high school diploma. And I'm not so sure that they are counted for us in that respect, and that is an ongoing concern of mine.
Dr. Collins?
To those 2 points, you do have, as part of the policy review, that information. So when we get to that particular policy, you'll get the information that Cheryl has provided, that spreadsheet that you mentioned, that not just compares what we require, but what other schools require. So you will have that in the policy. Also, we are in contact with the state. Is one of your pet peeve of trying to figure out if another school claims a student as a graduate because they go over there, they transfer out when they're facing the possibility that they have to spend another year here. They may de-enroll here, enroll in another school for a night program, actually earn a high school diploma, and in the past we have seen those students listed under our dropout rate, which makes us look bad. But we know they have graduated out of a public school. So we've been in touch with the state to see if there's a way to capture those numbers and be sure that they're not counted against us as dropouts, because they're really not dropouts. They are actual transfers to another school. Did I explain that?
Yes.
That's great.
Any questions on Cheryl? Cheryl, thank you.
Thank you.
We know there's great things going on here at the high
Thank
school.
you.
Thank you. right, so since we started at the high school, Mr. Simonello? I think Cheryl cut in line.
Nope, that's okay.
Whenever you're ready, Alan.
Okay, the school improvement plan, what I'd like to do first is... No, go ahead, take your time. It's okay. Wanna help with that? It's upside down. Okay, what I'd like to do first is, I have to apologize, I do believe the school improvement plan that you have in your packet, I think it was my mistake, I think I sent Karen Augusto a draft version that I was working on. So what I want to do, and some of the goals that are in there are old. They were this year's goal, I apologize. This right here is the school improvement plan that myself and the school council, that one of my members is here with me, has approved.
No problem.
Before we do that, I just want to talk about the accomplishments from this year for the school improvement plan and the school council. The first goal that talks about student achievement, we take a lot of time in going through MCAS scores, going through our data, and the sheet I'm working off is something that I did send to Karen Augusto, which is part of the school improvement plan. It's on, I do believe, page 6 of it. It looks like it's a memo from, that I inserted into the plan, into what you got from the packet. And that talks about the massive amounts of data that we get from MCAS, Gates McGinnity testing, the old ITBS scores. Even though we don't give those tests anymore, we still have data on the students when they did take them. And going through that data, collecting data, creating a list of kids that need extra help and whatnot, and incorporating that into our units of study. So that goal is very important. I think we at the middle school do a very good job at that. Moving on, goal 3, student achievement, talks about our tiered approach. I am very proud of the tiered approach that the middle school uses. That's the approach where students get pulled into small groups and given direct instruction. When we looked at the beginning of this school year, and I do believe I've spoken about this before, the amount of students that we are getting in who need some extra help, and the amount of students who leave in 8th grade, the few students that leave in 8th grade needing extra help is just remarkable. And that work I'm not taking credit for. That's the English and Language Arts Department, Mrs. Tripp, the 2 Berniers, Mrs. Connolly, they do, and Mrs. Lynch, and a couple other people. They do a lot of work pulling kids into small groups, giving them direct instruction, giving them the work that they need. So this is, I'm very proud of that. Goal 5, the school climate, the discipline committee. We worked very hard this year. We created the motto, be responsible, be respectful, be safe, that you see around the school. That is also, that's also announced every morning, a different portion of it. The kids had spoken about it. The faculty had gone through, what do we want, something that we can talk to the kids about, so we're all talking the same language. The discipline committee did that, and they did some really good work on it. Goal 7 talked about our tiered approach in mathematics, and that is at the very infancy stage. When you look at the tiered approach that ELA has, That's been going on for many years now, probably 5 years now. Our mathematics tiered approach, we have just begun that, so I'm looking forward to, in a couple of years, reporting out how well our math tiered instruction is going and the work that we can give, the help that we can give kids in smaller groups. Those are our accomplishments from the last school improvement plan. Looking at your new plan that I just gave you, and again, I apologize, I'm not sure what I was thinking when I sent what I sent to Karen, and I apologize. Some of the goals have remained the same, just due to the importance of looking at this information, re-looking at our the MCAS scores, the Gates-McGinnity data, the Achieve 3000 now. 5th and 6th graders are using that very much throughout the year, twice a week. And I know 4th grade is coming up using it as well. So we're going to have a lot of good data on kids that we need to look at, put into our data room, and create lists of kids that need some extra help and give them some targeted instruction. The very bottom of that first goal talks about our MCAS subgroups and what we are looking forward to, the goals that we're setting for ourselves. And hopefully, with all this extra work, we will be pushing these kids into proficient and advanced. The second goal talks about our units of study. This is an ongoing work. If you look at the chart, not every discipline is up to 100%. Some of them are lacking, so we still need to keep this. And even though a discipline might have 100% completed, for example, grade 5 science has all 6 units completed, they still need to go back and re-look at that and look at some of the data and what are they going to change? What are kids not learning? How can we adjust it? So it's an ongoing living document. The next goal talks about student achievement, and in this goal, we put in the math and the ELA tiered approach. Even though we are doing it, and I feel we're doing it very well, it still needs to be looked at, assessed. This goal also talks about a data team. That's one thing that unfortunately we were not able to do at the middle school last year that I want to push to complete this year, is to have a data team just within the building, so that there's a group of people looking at that data. Even though the teachers look at it, and I invite them in as for team meetings and grade level meetings, they look at the data, they look at those kids, it's still good to have another set of eyes looking over it and seeing where we're falling down, what we need help on, and what we're doing well. The fourth goal is new. It's a NELMS assessment. Dr. Colley spoke to me probably about a month ago or so and wanted to know if I was interested in having the middle school. NELMS is New England League of Middle Schools. It's an organization that's kind of self-explanatory. New England League of Middle Schools. It's just a bunch of middle schools. And they have an assessment team that'll come into a middle school and do a similar assessment that Mrs. Tutelo just spoke about at the high school. So they'll come in, spend a couple of days. Dr. Dargan and I met with the representative for the first time about 2 weeks ago, and looking at coming in next spring, getting some data that we're going to have to gather ahead of time, so that the goal is not very well defined in it, but I didn't have a whole lot of information at that time. When I spoke to the faculty about it, there was, as most change things, there was some apprehension, but there was a lot of teachers who were really looking forward to it, just for the fact that someone's going to come in, look at the middle school, tell us, hey, what we're doing well, and where can we improve. So we are actually really looking forward to that. The fifth goal talks about school climate, and it's just furthering the school motto, looking at the Tier 2 approach in behavior, looking at the referrals to the office, looking at student discipline and communicating student discipline with parents and teachers. And goal 6 is also looking at the mathematic tiered approach. I wanted to delineate this alone because we do need a lot of work in mathematics. And I'm not saying our math department's not working well. They're an excellent bunch of teachers, but our MCAS scores are not where they should be with the level of teaching that we have. So something is going amiss, and that's what this is looking at. We have some kids who are beginning to fall through the cracks, and with a tiered approach, we can give them the assistance that they need. So that's our draft school improvement plan. I went through fairly quickly. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, in a couple of cases, certainly with the English and the math assessments and planning accordingly, there's some gap time between the official release of MCAS results. Have you started to get any, do you know what the timeline is so you can start to It's implement? usually in the summertime. Yeah, the first wave of Yeah. where Yeah. the school leaders get, Sometime in the summer, we will get the name slips me, where we have to fix anything that's wrong. Sometimes there'll be students who took the test and there are no scores for them. And I forget the name of that. A discrepancy report, yes. And that's our first kind of look at it. There's usually not a lot of scores on it, but, so that's where we start looking at it. And when we have our retreat, we have a little bit of information for it. and some of the other tests, the McGinty, you already have. That we already have, yes, and that we will have, and we will use basically as soon as we get them back, which is usually about 3 weeks turnaround. The Achieve 3000 monthly, we get reports. I can go on that monthly, more than monthly if I want, but monthly reports. And what I do is I update my targeted list of kids with their new Lexile, which is a reading level score. So that we get back instantaneously. That's one of the newer programs we've yes. implemented, Yes. and so we're able to bring that into our goals. Yes. Fantastic. Thank you.
Alec, yesterday I had the pleasure of walking in on your data room
Yes.
with Dr. Dargan, and you mentioned something about, that's something that you guys are doing over there, and that's making sure that every student had a teacher contact, or
Yes.
or every teacher had contact with it. Could you just explain that to people a little bit? Just
What I had done in the very beginning part of the year, and I know Mrs. Tudelo does this also, where I ask every teacher to write down, I have every single student's name on a piece of paper, and teachers will come and put their initials next to students that they have a connection with. And I've done this for the last 3 years that I've been there. And then you look at the kids who have no connections. And it's more than just that Alec was in my social studies class. It's knowing that Alec's mother had chemotherapy done 2 years ago, and he still suffers, and she still suffers from it and whatnot. It's really knowing the kids. And there were quite a few kids that didn't have that connection. So one of the things that we started to do this school year is to implement an advisory program. I met with the two counselors and the assistant principal, working on, okay, how's this going to look? We unfortunately could not get that on we couldn't get it up and running for this school year, but over the summertime we're going to meet. So in September we hit the ground running, and we have an up and running advisory program very similar to the high school. And I think that will eliminate, because every single child will be in a small group of 10 students per one teacher, or aide or secretary or somebody who will be doing the same programs with them and really getting to know those kids.
yeah, it's a great idea, obviously.
And very similarly to your chaperone list when you go to Washington. You know those kids so well, the ins and outs and everything about them. That would be great to do in 5th grade and really know these kids as you go through. So that'll eliminate any child in a middle school. In a middle school, kids grow, and there's so much going on in their lives that they really need somebody that they can connect with and say, I got this little problem going on. More than just a counselor, more than just a teacher. So.
Anything else? Thanks, Alec.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Let me move on, like Cheryl did, and to my school handbook. Actually, before I do, I think you also want us to talk about the bullying data. Just for your information, I had 5 formal complaints of bullying this school year, which I think is remarkable from what I think 2 years ago initially reported out at, which I want to say it was in the 30s. We had 5 formal complaints. 2 of those were actually bullying. We determined that they were bullying. The complaints came from 5th grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade. The actual bullying took place from a 6th grader and an 8th grader. But it is just remarkable, and as you know, last week as I was getting all this information together for this meeting, myself, the assistant principal, and the guidance counselor were just looking for more, and why wasn't there more? And we have done an awful lot at the middle school to attack bullying. We had a presentation very early on in the school year. There was Mrs. Teague and Mrs. Michaels sat down with the entire school, talked about a definition for bullying. We had a whole bullying week. We talked about it. The kids are much better at when they come and they complain about this. That first year, I think everything was bullying, and now they know exactly what bullying is, and we have a better handle on it. So there were 5 formal complaints, and we noted today that none of them were cyberbullying. None of them were Facebook issues where kids or adults are just going on and saying nasty things about other people through Facebook. So it was good. So the handbook, basically, some of the changes are policy identifications. I've put the letters next to those policy things. I've added in the be responsible, be respectful, be safe, and what that's posted in throughout the school. In the very beginning of the handbook, I've added in a lot that I basically stole from Mrs. Tutelos, because there was some excellent just identification about the school mission, the why we do the handbook, what parents can expect from the handbook. I did add, again, like Ms. Tutelos said about the school safety, the doors being locked, how to get into the building, which door parents can enter in, through ringing the doorbell. We highlighted the student attendance because that is quite an issue at the middle school, certain kids being out and tardy for a lot of days, and trying to get a handle on that, so I've highlighted that in there. I'm sorry, I'm just flipping through. A lot of it remained the same with the discipline as it has throughout the years. I have also added in, along with the dress code, school dance dress code. Our dress code is very prescribed, and speaking with the school council and speaking with the school faculty, they really like it to be prescribed, so there's no gray thought upon where and what students can or can't wear. That's on page 15. And I do believe I've just further detailed and further defined principals list, because I know that was an issue throughout the year, and National Junior Honor Society. Since we got that back up and running, it's much better defined within the student handbook. And outside of some more, just hooking up some of our things to the school policies, that's about it. Those are the changes, the few changes that we were made to that.
Okay.
Any questions?
Anyone? Thanks, Alan.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Gaston?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to start off by taking a couple of minutes to speak of the accomplishments as they pertain to the school improvement plan. The Gold Math program, which was piloted this year, has gone very well. Data that was collected at the end of the second trimester shows some very, very rapid improvement.
especially in the lower levels, which we attribute to the fact that the learning curve is not as great as the third and fourth graders. They are getting familiar with the program quite quickly. At the end of the second trimester, only 19% of the, 15% of the students in math were below a 73 average. Grade 2 was 13%, and it spiked up a little bit as we go along. In grade 3, 21, and grade 4, 26%. So again, I think that the younger children are adapting very quickly to it because they are not as familiar with some of the material as the third and fourth graders were. As far as the reading goes, again, we're showing great strides in the reading at the lower levels. The percentages of students reading below grade level is 19% in grade 1. I mean, that's not certainly our goal, but it's more positive than we would be with the second. It kind of inflates up with each grade level. Grade 2 was 25, grade 3 was 28, and grade 4 is 40. And we're very, very anxious to see what the data is going to bring in after the 15th, because we're going to be doing the third trimester data. Part of the reason I think that the reading is getting better is we're having the guided reading in place in every classroom. We have level readers. We had a grant recently that we were able to purchase $30,000 worth of level readers. Those are in place. They're being utilized by the teachers. But also progress monitoring all students who are at warning or at risk at least once a month. Their progress is continually monitored. The other students are done 4 times a year, so that's an increase in the amount of attention that we're giving to the students in need. Also, we're utilizing data to drive instruction on a more regular basis. Goal, of course, is to continue for that to grow and to be more consistent, but now we are establishing where everyone stands. We're meeting on a monthly basis to look at the data, and the data, once again, is driving the instruction. We also, just continuing along, we've had a reduction in office referrals as far as the school climate goes. We've instituted a few new programs. We have a halls program, which is pertains to the students moving around the building. I think anyone who's been in the building can see that we worked really hard to initiate that and to maintain it this year. We are also looking to increase some of our other programs, such as Achieve 3000, RAS Kids, and Extra Math. The Achieve 3000 was started in 4th grade for some of the students who didn't do that well on MCAS. It proved to be very valuable, so we included the entire grade, and gradually it's trickled down to 3rd grade, and now it's in the 2nd grade. We also instituted RAS Kids. A couple of the 1st grade teachers were utilizing it, and it was very effective, and we've brought that now to the entire 1st grade, and we also sent some staff over to Macomb, and I'm happy to say that they're utilizing it there also. For the summertime, all students that were going into grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 are going to be doing either Achieve or RAS. We've had sessions in the evening for parents, and we are going to be sending home notices with user IDs and passwords that the parents can get online and see the progress of their students. Also going to be doing Extra Math this summer. It's a computer-based program to increase speed and accuracy. We're asking parents once again to have their children spend 2 sessions a week on it. We don't think it's a very, very big commitment, but at least it's going to maintain what the students are doing. Also, we have a student council, which we established as part of our school improvement plan. They meet on a monthly basis, and this year they did a little survey, and the students decided on a character counts program where they identify 1 word every month that they are going to concentrate on, and the teachers recognize students in their class. Sometimes it may be honesty, it may be helping others, things along those lines that are very positive enforcers. Also, in regards to the plan, we have the Feinstein relationship. I think it's on the agenda tonight. Mr. Feinstein has offered a $10,000 grant to the school if we put a sign up outside that states that we are a Feinstein leadership school. He has provided several $1,000s this year for us, which we've used to send kids to the after-school program. We're looking to send anywhere from 12 to 20 students to the Thomas Chu Boys and Girls Club this summer, and also utilize the money to support anyone who maybe can't afford to come to the summer school program that we're using. So our relationship there has been very strong. We also, in regards to the accomplishment, spent a lot of time on the RTI process. We had a lot of need that was identified last year, my first year here, and it can continue this year into the 4th grade. Now we feel very comfortable that we've kind of addressed the needs of the students that are high at risk, and we're moving along there. We have the 1, 2, and 3-tiered instruction in place. And going forward, the district is also going to be implementing a positive behavior intervention and support program that we are looking to take part in also. As far as our goals, we're looking to, of course, improve MCAS We think that there's a good possibility of that happening in the coming years because of the fact that the Foundations program is now in grades 1 through 3. So the kids that are going to be entering grade 4 next year will have had the Foundations since kindergarten. Also, in regards to the Go Math, we have adopted the program, and we are really getting into the meat of it by using all the different components. One of our teachers, Stephanie Schurtz, the remedial math teacher, has really taken over leadership there, and she's broadened the horizons as to what we can do, especially with the technology part of it with the smart boards. Some of the needs that we have, our goals is to get some more professional development on differentiated and tiered instruction, and Dr. Doggan has taken care of that. We just happened to get an email in today that there's going to be a summer course that's going to be offered for 5 days for any teacher that wants to participate. We're also looking for some additional professional development on use of the primary comprehension toolkit for grades 1 and 2, and to be a little more consistent with our writing instruction and common assessments, which I know the ELA committee has been working on during the course of the year. Flexible grouping is another area that we're looking to really make some changes in, so we have been meeting with the reading and the math folks, as well as the assistant superintendent and Dr. Colley, and we'll head in the direction where we're going to have a flexible grouping every day for each grade level, where we're going to use all our resources. We're going to have the Title I people, both math and reading, the special educators, the OT, the PT, the speech, to go in and group and break the children down into small identified need groups, and start that at the beginning of the year and have that continually run throughout the year. Also, we're looking to possibly run a summer assessment clinic. Mrs. Mello, who coordinates our reading program, had the idea to try to get them together, and we're going to try to do is link that in with the summer school program. The children who are going to be coming into summer school, we're looking to do a pre and a post test. We're hoping that it's going to be a Fontes and Pinnell running record. Indications are that that would be our best way to go. Also, we're looking to continue along with the district determined measures and the common assessments that we're going to be developing during the course of the year. That's pretty much where we stand in those two areas. Any questions?
Covered all the bases.
Good. In regards to bullying, I'm very happy to report, as Mr. Ciminello did, we only had 5 reported cases. 2 were confirmed. Mrs. Bakayaki, our adjustment/guidance counsel, does a great job. She uses the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center curriculum. She's in classes on a weekly basis, and she's also one of the heads of the school council, the student council. So we are really getting the word out there about being positive with the students. So again, we're very proud of the fact that that has been reduced from past years, and look to continue to reduce it. In regards to the school handbook, there's only a couple of changes that Mrs. Staskowitz and I put together, one of which would be a dress code. I don't know if people perceive that as an issue, but there are occasions where children have a tendency to wear beach attire or flip-flops. So if you look in the handbook, if it's in color coded, there's a section here strictly on dress code. Just explaining to parents, sometimes parents may have not had the right idea of what would be acceptable in school. So we're just looking to maybe save some phone calls, and to also to have a little consistency in what children wear. I know some teachers wanted to have uniforms, but I know we can't travel down that road yet. The other change was made was disciplinary action. Mrs. Staskowitz and I have spent a lot of time working with students, explaining. We have the take a break section in the cafeteria, and the teachers are doing the morning meeting, but there are times when students do go above and beyond, and the feeling would be we would spell out some of the different consequences for the different infractions. So that's listed on page 6 in the handbook. One thing that I did not put in the handbook that I forgot to put in there was in regards to the safety. We are following the same procedure that every other school is following. The door is locked in the morning, and it's locked all day long, including when the after-school programs are in session. Staff are let in by the custodian early in the morning, and when either I or the secretary come in, then they have to come in the front door. So we are taking as many steps as possible. We did have some complaints a couple of times during the year about the after-school program when a large crowd would mill in the hallway, so that has been addressed, and staff has been very good about maintaining that.
Any questions for Tom? Tom, what about staff? We good there?
Staff for next year, we're projecting 6 first grades. We're also projecting 7 second, 5 and third, and 5 and fourth.
I have one question. As we look at the student handbook, and as you mentioned, Ms. Statzkowitz and yourself have added some items. Has that been reviewed with the school policy book to make sure that the guidelines fit with what we have as our school policy?
But we feel that it has, yes, that it does.
So you looked at the school policy
Yes.
guidebook and compared? Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Ms. Pacetto?
Good evening. So I'm going to be talking about the same things that my colleagues here talked about, the old school improvement plan and what we have done this year, as well as the updates and instances of bullying in the handbook. First of all, in the assessment portion, our reading levels we have 94% of our students are moving on to first grade at the appropriate reading
How
level.
many? 97?
94%.
94.
Not 94 students, 94%. Those students that are not necessarily kind of at grade level or, kind of still playing catch up, we are inviting them to summer school as well as a variety of other students. In fact, the reading initiative, so to speak, the preschool students that are in, 4 years old going into kindergarten, they're actually reading level A's, double A's, early emergent readers. So that's another kind of takeoff from that.
Our preschoolers are reading.
Preschoolers reading, 4-year-olds are reading. Also, I'm sure you all know about the DIBELS and the test of early numeracy. Those are just some different ways that we measure how the kids are progressing, and we met the benchmark in that. In fact, it completely exceeded what we had set in the school improvement plan. All of our struggling students were given tiered interventions and progress monitored, similar to the RTI that the other principals had spoken about. We revised our report card to be standards-based, and that was both for preschool and for kindergarten. And the common assessments to be aligned to the Common Core state standards. That included the Go Math. That was an initiative through K through 4. However, in preschool, we adopted the Letter People curriculum, which is very, very, very popular and hugely successful. And I'll refrain from singing a song from the Letter People tonight, but we can certainly put that on another agenda if you want. Our units by design, 70% of them are complete. We anticipate that next year, with some more curriculum changes, that we might add on to that, so that number might stay the same next year because the actual amount of total UBDs might increase. Our RTI process is in place, and we identified students through that process. I'm sure you all remember the NAYC accreditation last year, so we have sent in that report. That's a yearly report that we have to do. It's about 40 pages long that I do. The teachers don't have to participate in that. And then the positive behavior intervention systems with all of the teachers at Macomber School took responsive classroom 1 earlier in the year. So with the updated school improvement plan, since we did so much this year, we're going to be aligning with the new science curriculum, so the NGSS, the next generation science standards, and getting more of the FOSS science kits, so that right now we use trees and weather, and we're going to be using materials around us next year. So, and those are kind of encompassing throughout the whole year, and taking a look at the social studies curriculum, which is just a very small piece of things. Finishing up the curriculum expectations in math and ELA, however, that's really come a long, long way. One of our big I don't want to say concerns, but a huge thing on our plate for next year. There's what's called the MKEA, and that's the Massachusetts Kindergarten Entry Assessment. And we have to be part of Cohort 3 because we get the kindergarten grant. And Cohort 3 is not next year, it's the year after, and it's a huge assessment. There's 32 different categories, and within each category, there's about 4 or 5 different standards that have to be assessed. So the total assessment for each child, and it's very individual, where you actually have to sit with the child. Does the child have 5 or more friends over the course of 2 weeks? It's not just 2 + 3 = 5. It's very extensive. It averages out to about 2 to 4 hours per child twice a year. So we're trying to look at how we can piece that together, because that is a mandate. And it's, like I said, something that we absolutely have to do. Our preschool does it right now, and it's taken them about 5 years to really perfect how they're doing it in their classrooms, so that it's not all assessment, and that's not what we want. So we are trying to figure out how we can do that. So we're going to take next year to take a look at the assessments that we do have and see what kind of model we can use, so that it's not just a constant assessment, which I know that we've all been hearing that education, is becoming. So you'll hear me talk about the MKEA, and the program that we're going to be using is called Teaching Strategies Gold. We are allowed to use, there was a choice of 2 different ones, but our preschool's already using Teaching Strategies Gold because of the CFCEG grant, the Community, Family, and Coordinated Grant Engagement, something about being families and engaging them. But we're part of that with Fall River, and we have to use the Teaching Strategies Gold in preschool to be a part of that grant. So, and then in terms of instruction, just kind of summing up, narrowing down the RTI strategies in the process, planning on having a group this summer look at some of the different RTI strategies and tiering intervention, and what kinds of different instructional alternatives we have for students that are not necessarily making adequate progress. And as with my colleagues, looking at district determined measures for next year, I know that's going to be a big thing. And that's my school improvement plan. The instances of bullying, we had 1 instance of bullying. It was on the bus. And thank goodness for Mrs. Harrington, as well as all the staff members that really have embraced the second step curriculum that Mrs. Harrington has put forth in during the week that she does, lessons in every classroom. In our handbook, we had 4 different changes, and it was Mrs. Harrington, which she's actually the early childhood specialist / social worker. It's not necessarily called a guidance counselor at our stage of the game. And then please note, school doors do not open to students' families till 8:30 a.m. Again, same thing as the other schools. I also added something about the blog, which I use very often, that since it's much more up to date and it's able to get out information to families rather quickly. And then at the end, the final one, which I'm sure is an issue for some people, or maybe not, about the invitations for special occasions. It's something that we've always done there, but I'd like it to become a policy, because it's very often that, let's say we're going to what would it be now, your 30th birthday party, Tony, and not everyone gets an invitation, so I'm sure we would have some hurt feelings. So that's what we have to deal with all the time, so we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen. Does it make sense? So if you don't invite the whole class, don't send them in, because we can't.
Don't do it at school.
We can't do that, and then I'll get complaints, and it will be a big issue. So making it more of a policy would make it helpful. We already do that as best practices.
Okay.
And that's it. Do you have any questions?
Numbers for next year?
Numbers for next year. We are currently at, first of all, our preschool is full capacity. We're pretty much booked. So all the rooms, we have to leave open slots for the early intervention kiddos that are coming in, or that we would anticipate, and you have no idea how many could come in. But we have a huge waiting list at this point. Not huge, but fairly big. And it's not just in-towners, it's a lot of out-of-towners too, just to keep you informed. As of today, we have 93 incoming kindergartners.
Average, right?
A little on the low side of average, to be honest with you. It's the lowest I've seen at this point since I've been there.
Really?
which- Yes. So,
Anything? Melissa?
Do our Westport residents have first choice in regards to preschool? Or
absolutely.
does it? Okay.
oh yeah. In fact, absolutely. They don't even, there's no, we tell all the out-of-towners, we'll put them on the waiting list, and it's first come, first serve once the out-of-towners, but at this point, we've kind of told them it's probably not going to happen, because we still have Westport people that haven't been able to get in. So we probably have, gosh, I think anywhere from 8 to 12 Westport residents that we haven't been able to get in. So, and we're still waiting, some people, they, I'm not sure, so.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. FY13 budget update. Dr. Collin.
Just wanted to perhaps suggest that we move a couple of the action item agendas pieces up so that the principals can be here for those, and then they can go home.
All right, which ones?
The handbooks, basically the law requires the school committee to accept the handbooks or additions or changes to the handbooks. That's why they presented them today. And then the other ones are, there's a couple of, there's the approval of the Feinstein grant and the approval of the light for the Mac cafeteria, the approval of the grant for the SAT, and we've had to cancel a couple of field trips that are out of state for the elementary school, and I'm not sure we need to revote them, but if you do, I have the information.
We'll do that.
So if you want to do that, we can do that.
So, a motion, let's move on. We'll do the student handbooks. Have a motion to approve.
I'd make a motion that the Westport School Committee accepts Dr. Colley's recommendation on the school handbooks.
Second the motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I believe the schools did a fantastic job. We've got some new additions, and for the, perhaps for brevity, we didn't get any input in addition, so I assume there's no more input from the superintendent regarding these handbooks.
The only thing that will be changed in the main portion of the handbook, but those are not the portions that the law requires that you basically approve and accept, are the things like the letter that we put in there welcoming new families in August, the calendar for next year, which we haven't put together, and the list of staff, I believe, is another area that we leave until just before school opens, and then we post that on the website. Those are just additions that we do every year as we go, but they are not under the requirements. That's why we had the principals present their portion, and in particular, really, it's only the high school and the middle school portions that you need to approve. But I figure since the high school and the middle school are doing it, might as well hear what the elementary and the MAC were doing as well.
So a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Which one, Dr. Colley? Do you want me to go to the grant?
The grant, I would say,
Approval of a $1,090 grant from the Community Foundation of Southeastern Massachusetts for additional SAT prep. A motion?
Motion to
Motion to-
accept.
Second? I'll second. Any discussion?
Is this in the packet?
Is the grant in the packet, Art?
So I'd just like to get to it.
It's past the handbooks.
Look online, like it's on. You okay? Got a motion and a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay?
Yep.
Motion passes.
Oh, that's good.
Motion, second. You voting? It
Yeah.
passes 2-1.
Yep,
It
I just wanted to look at the dates.
The talk light, Dr. Colley? Do that one next?
Yep.
Approval of a $1,100 talk light for the MAC cafeteria, donated by the Bay Coast Bank, Lee's Market, the Westport Police, and the Westport Fire Department. Motion to accept.
Motion to accept?
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Colley, you want to just quickly, or
Julie's here.
Julie? Just very, very quickly,
Explain what a talk light is.
these are for our preschoolers who drive to school, is that what it is?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
These are for our preschoolers who drive to school? No?
Yes, now our preschoolers are driving to schools. No. It's basically.
They're reading, though.
Of course, they're reading those signs. In the cafeteria, it's a light, stop, that's basically a traffic light. And when it was actually in the newspaper as well. When the students are really loud, it's red. When they're, but it goes from green to yellow, so obviously they're looking at it. We had an old one in there from that we had borrowed from the elementary school, but then it broke. So one of our policemen, who happens to have a child in the school, Officer Sylvia, was interested in helping us, and he liked the idea of the talk light. And he was the one that went out and did all this work. He found it, he came in, the fireman came and put it up, and it was great. So now it's new, and it's got all these bells and whistles that the old one didn't have. And you can adjust the sensitivity, so we're still on the very...
So it's automatic? It changes color on
It
its
changes,
own?
so right now, in this room, it would be green, but if we started yelling a little bit, it would go to yellow, and then it would go to red. And not only does it go to red, but it actually makes this fantastic noise that is ear-piercing now. It's
So once the kids realize
and the kids know
they're
it.
changing the color.
Well, you can see the yellow from Idaho, because it is really bright. It's not like the other one. It's very vibrant. So the yellow really kind of takes over the whole room. So it's really nice.
Awesome, I gotta
Yeah,
go check
and
it
thank
out.
you to all the different people that helped out with that, and they did a great job, and the firemen and the policemen, they really reached out to us and helped us, so I'm very
Great.
happy.
Thank
That
you.
was wonderful.
So did we have a motion on that already? No. Yes? And a second, that was discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
approval of a $10,000 grant and a permanent placement of signage. This was at the, this is at the West Feinstein Leadership School.
Make a motion to accept the grant for 10,000, put the sign at the elementary school.
Second.
Discussion? So as Mr. Gastal had stated earlier, Mr. Feinstein has been very generous in helping the, in donating his time and resources, and I don't see any wrong in accepting this donation. All in favor?
Aye.
Field trips, Dr. Fine? Yep.
Yeah, we have a couple of field trips that were approved already. They've been rescheduled, or we're trying to reschedule them due to the weather that we've been having. They're out of state, so I don't know if you need to redo them, but I don't have a problem with them going.
So we have a field trip for grade 2 to Mystic Aquarium on the 17th.
Right.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. And again, the reason we need to approve these is because they're out of state. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have another field trip for grade 1.
That would have been Friday, and I think they're trying to move it to Tuesday. We still don't have a nurse to go with them, and the nurse would have to go with it. So I'm looking for conditional approving, because we won't have another school committee meeting till the 26th.
This is to the Roger Williams Park Zoo.
Right. And there's a bunch of students who have special needs and medical needs, so we need a nurse. If we can't get a nurse, we can't reschedule, but we're trying.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Aye. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion. All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Thank you. Yeah, you good? Oh, we're jumping around just to keep you guessing.
Now we can go back to the budget and all that
So
good
you want
stuff.
to go back now? We'll go back to the budget. Okay. All right. So, Dr. Colley, so FY13 budget update. Information agenda.
Okay. Let me get to that spot. As you know, we've been trying to track our budget to June 30th. I met again with Melissa a couple of days ago. We still feel like this tally of accounts and how much money we have left in any of these accounts is still a good estimate of where we'll be in a couple of weeks. We have asked principals and all administrators to basically refrain from submitting new requests for expenditures at this point. We do have some POs pending tonight's meeting because there's certain things that I feel the school committee should weigh in on, and they're listed on this top sheet that you have for the update. So the concern that we have at this point is anything that we even try to spend now, one, either we may not have enough money to spend it at the end of the year if we go beyond what's here, and two, anything that gets spent has to have an invoice returned to us by June 30th, or else we cannot spend it out of this year's funding. So this is why we have said to principals and other administrators, we are not accepting any new POs. I mean, if there's another storm and something happens, we'll have to adjust, and we'll try to make that adjustment for the 26th, but at this point, regular expenditures, we're not trying to make any new ones. So if I can go through the list, the 14 payroll should be just about finished. We basically have all the things that we need for that payroll. We just haven't submitted it, so it hasn't hit the accounts. That's why you still see some funding left over in that line. The lump sum, again, for teachers and the non-lump sum teacher payroll for the 28th, that's already calculated. We just have to input it in. Actually, we've sent it to the town, or it's going to the town tomorrow. The town has to verify it, send it back to us. We verify it a second time, and then it goes directly to the payroll people who cut the checks, and along with the summer teacher pays. So all those expenditures that we're expecting to put in still get us to that magic number that there's about $80,000 left in unencumbered salaries, or as a balance. And that includes estimates that we have for our long-term subs, because we have still a few of those working in the system. So 80,000 plus or minus maybe 1,000 or two. In terms of the expenditure reports, we still have course reimbursement, although those we pretty much have in hand, so we shouldn't see any more of those. But we still have the legal bills to be paid, the utilities, and whatever other bills are coming due this month, which sometimes we don't get till like the 27th or the 28th of June. So that's why we have an estimate there of about 68,000. We do have about $15,000 worth of POs that we have in hand, that we have for purchases that have been done. The purchases, in other words, we've ordered the stuff out of the 327 school committee meeting. Those bills haven't come in yet because a few of the items have not arrived yet. So we're chasing down the bills so we get them by June 30th so we can close those POs. Langmart training, again, the same thing. They came recently. We have the bill in hand, but we haven't processed it yet, but we should by June 30th. The reading, language arts, supplies and materials, again, the POs are in hand, and we can push the button tomorrow. So we do have the money for that. Maintenance of security system, or upgrades, whatever you want to call it, doors and perhaps video equipment. There's also another one down under SPED, which would require a transfer. Those two combined are about 57,000 or so. We have money to spend on that. High school admin technology. I sent you all an email that a few weeks back we had some of the systems here basically fry, and we had to replace them. Again, I think we already have the bills, but they haven't been processed, so they'll be in the next warrant. Reading and writing instructional supplies, those we have the POs. We have not sent that out yet, waiting for today. And the same thing with the instructional supplies. The SPED prepays, those we do at the end of the year. And then we do have 20,000 in there. I know Mr. Rivers had asked about the possibility of using some of our end of the year monies to purchase at least a van. So the money's still in there. The security. And then we do have to start reducing some of the transportation monies that we have in there. We do have a little bit of a transfer. For a total of unencumbered balance for the end of the year of about 115. However, I gotta let you know, we may have a big bill to deal with, and I will bring it up in executive, but it's a litigation bill. So we have the money to do the things we have projected to do. I know there were a few other questions about the revolving accounts. We do have some balances there that we're going to carry forward into next year that we can use to take care of some of the other bills that we'll be seeing starting July 1st. And the other thing I think Mr. Sullivan had asked about other areas of possible expenditures to look at. He needed information on wells, septic, electric, kitchen. We talked about security and executive, but all those things I have Mike Duart and Kim Millett and Michelle here, and so that they know more about those systems than I do. So the proposal is to spend these funds, leave the 115 as an unencumbered balance. We can talk about that on the 26th, which is our next school committee meeting. And then if there's other questions or decisions not to spend or to spend in other places, then that would be appropriate at this time.
Dr. Colley, the student activities revolving fund,
Mm-hmm.
that's still being used now, right? I mean,
Some of it is being used. Next year it will be used. If you remember, Jason, who was here, has been doing the AD work. Mrs. Tulo has been trying to do a lot of the activities. Jason actually has a day job as a TA in the system, so a lot of the work that he does is completely after hours. It was paid as a stipend. We found, as good a job as he did, there was always some glitches and days that he was in classroom, weather turned bad, all this scheduling became a mess. Sometimes he was able to do it during lunch times. Mrs. Toole helped, the ladies in the office helped. So for next year, we have moved that into a regular position, and we're going to be using some of that balance for that, and perhaps a little bit to pay stipends to one of the secretaries to help them out when the seasons start. So it'd be more on a per diem or per hour basis.
Lost me for a second. I'm not really sure if this question had to do with the expenditure analysis, or is there some detail having to do with the student activity report on the agenda item we're on at this time?
You
all
do
part of
have,
it,
I
okay.
think he's
I was just looking
asking,
at
the revolving accounts are included in your packet?
Under the expenditures?
Yes.
Which is not the item we're on the agenda now? Or am I lost? That's what I'm asking.
FY13 budget update.
Okay, so we're looking at the
Yeah.
expenditures for this year coming out of the accounts that are here.
Mm-hmm.
And I was,
And he was asking whether there was additional funding left in some of the revolving accounts, which is also in your packet.
okay, so my question is going to be on this agenda item, and having to do with more detail. I see we've bundled together some items, and then we've been very clear on some other line items. So let's focus on the $65,000, the projected utilities. You mentioned the course reimbursement is all done now, so there's not much. And then we've got our legal budget expanded in that line item. Can we have a breakdown? Because I don't have any breakdown. I had sent
Right
an
now,
email
we're
previous
just-
on
we're-
these new expenditures.
Well, right now, we're tracking the amount of money we've spent in previous years on the last the last month worth of bills, both for utilities and legal bills to be paid, and those haven't come in yet, so that's why we put estimate. But if it's true to previous years, it should be around 65,000.
Right, including utilities. What I'm asking is how much is the legal by itself? That's my question.
Off the top of my head,
All right, 'cause,
Don't know.
well, I had sent an email about these new expenditures and asked for more detail, and I still don't have it. So that's somewhat confusing on that line item, that we've coupled together. Utilities are pretty close to knowing what we're going to have. We don't know the breakdown with what's presented in front of us.
Anything else, Michael?
Yeah,
go
the
ahead.
details on the line items.
Dr. Colley, the van,
Mhm.
maybe I'm confused. I thought we decided to buy the van at the last meeting.
I don't think we took a vote. That's why
Are
it's
we
on
waiting?
the, it's also on the action agenda and the
Okay.
year expenditure proposals. And you have in that part of the agenda, you have the actual slip from the company that we proposing to use. I don't know if they have them still. I mean, when we first put this together, I had Kim and Mike do the research to make sure they still had them. At the time that we put this together, they still had them. Last week.
And you mentioned earlier about potential litigation or legal bills. That's in sped, you said? Or? Any other comments, Sonia? Michael? Like to see, so you'd like to see some more detail on the utilities?
I
Right,
can, ha-
well,
I can have
well,
Melissa
no,
break that up.
For all the line items, I'd like to see some detail. That I used as an example where we bundled together unrelated expenses. However, my request is asking for some detail for the school committee on whether it be landmark training. I assume we need more training than we had budgeted for. But as we're looking at reading, language, art, instructional supplies for next year, didn't we have some of that in next year's budget?
We
and-
pulled it out of next year's budget, so, because we had expected that we would perhaps be able to purchase it out of this year's funds and use it for summer school as well.
So what will this bring our total budget for this year for that line item? We're adding 23,000 to what dollar amount?
I would have to go back and look at the line item budget.
But-
Which is
So those
probably
would
in
be
your,
my,
Supplies for next year, with this year's money.
yes.
That's what we're doing, because we didn't, it's not, we took it out of next year's budget, so we're buying it with this year's.
I'm sure Mrs. or Dr. Dargan could go back to her office and pull out all the POs to break down those lines if you want.
Okay, anything else on that? All right. So the end of year expenditure proposals,
Basically would be to get approval to do the things that are on this list unless there's other things that you would perhaps want us to do, or if there are any of these you don't want us to do, and let that amount then fall into the unencumbered
also
balance.
these here have to get we have to vote on this list.
The ones that I'm looking approval for are the reading, the maintenance and security systems, the high school admin technology. I had to go ahead and do it, otherwise the high school would not be able to do report cards or any operations. So we went ahead and did that because of the storm. The other reading and writing supplies, I've held on to those, along with the high school instructional piece, the van, and the other security piece. The sped prepay you had already approved as part of the budgeting process.
Dr. Colley, what was the first one you mentioned?
You have the reading and language arts supplies.
Okay, all right, that was the one I, okay.
It's basically the maintenance of the security system, the reading and language arts supplies, the instructional supplies, and the van that we need to have approvals for.
Comments?
Yeah, I'm happy to make a motion. I'd make a motion that we refer the FY13 budget update to the budget subcommittee to review the details as I've expressed interest in.
Got a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Discussion?
You've got in front of us a budget update. Some of the items on here have been approved, some have not. I'm just asking for more detail on those that have not been yet approved because they don't bring up any recall in terms of a few of them, which I've expressed interest and I've had questions on. I think the budget subcommittee could look at it and make a recommendation perhaps for the next.
How soon do you need to vote on this, then?
If we don't do it tomorrow, we won't be able to put the purchases in.
I asked Dr. Clay how soon we would need to vote. We need to do it by tomorrow.
I recall a number of these items, so I think that we've reviewed them. I've seen this list a few times. It would be nice to have the detail, but I think at this point, because we're running up to a very close deadline, that we need to move. My other question would be, I didn't see the truck purchase in here, so.
The truck is in there. We did not add it in because we don't feel like we have enough funding for that out of this year's. It's also in the backup under the action agenda. And if you want the backup for the maintenance and supplies and reading, writing supplies and all that, I'm sure the ladies in the back of the room can scramble and go get them and present them. The rest, you have seen the security proposals, and the rest are just bills that we get every year.
Okay. So I would not see it. Well, we do have a second, so we'll vote on the motion.
Discussion still?
Discussion.
So we're approving this budget update, is that what you would prefer we
Well,
do?
some of these expenditures, yeah.
But without detail of those particular expenditures. We're approving a legal budget that we don't know what it is, so I suggest, and I don't know what this deadline that you two were just discussing, that if we don't do it by today, something about tomorrow, I don't even know what that means. I'd like to know what our legal budget is, and we're expanding it here, but we don't know how much. Reading supplies were addressed as classroom supplies in the budget subcommittee hearing, not of that amount. We've had details on some of these, and now they've changed, and there's some deadline tomorrow. I think it could use a review on Monday, but apparently there's a deadline.
Dr. Collins.
Okay. The projected utilities and legal bills, I do not have them, so I cannot give them to you. I can tell you what we spent in previous years, and I can have Melissa send that to you so that you can see what we spent in this month on electric, on heating, on legal bills, and project it back for you so you know where she came up with that estimated amount. The second item on there was already approved. Landmark, I can get you the bill. It's already done. They came, they went. The reading and language arts supplies, I just sent Dr. Dargan to get you those. Maintenance and security, those bills, you have seen the proposal. The prepay, you've already approved. The van, the information is in here. So if we get the information for, that seems to be missing for you, is the reading and writing supplies and what those 23,000 and the 15,000 and 2,000 are for. Perhaps that would make it easier for you guys to take action on it today. The issue is, if we put in the requests to purchase this stuff any later, chances are, one, we will not get delivery of these supplies and materials before June 30th, and we will not then be able to pay any of the bills when they do come. So the materials would come. If we don't have the bills dated June 30th or delivery by June 30th, we have to send the materials back. The money remains in our unencumbered balance and it goes back to the town. So then we would then have to do the repurchasing in next year's budget if there is money for it.
Michael.
Again, the subcommittee came up with a list of expenditures and prioritized. Half of those items are not on this list. I think the subcommittee should have at least some detail on why you selected some of these items over what the budget subcommittee over a month ago, after a 3-hour discussion, came up with and voted on. Not that that was binding, but you've been asked about that. So here we are tonight, and there's something about a 1-day deadline, but is that a hard deadline? You said something about tomorrow.
Was it?
That's what the people in the offices are telling me. In fact, they wanted for me to approve the POs today, and I said, no, let's wait till school committee tonight.
Unfortunately, I have a different take on our subcommittee meeting. I believe that these items were mentioned. So the only question that I have at this point is, and I apologize, I know you answered my question, but I didn't understand. The truck isn't included, or it is included?
It's not included, but I know Tony had asked, can we see what they are? So
Okay.
I had get the actual sheets from the vendor, the state vendor.
At
So
this
you
time,
would see what it is.
At this time, are you waiting because you're not sure if we'll have the funding? Is that what your thoughts are?
Exactly.
Okay.
But the truck purchase was approved at town meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
So
I-
it could
I know
still
if we
come
had-
from the
We
town.
were just
Yeah.
gonna take it off
Right.
the town side if we decided to
Yep.
pay for it.
Okay.
Michael?
Well, I just wanted to make it clear that part of that subcommittee, the truck purchases were reviewed, and there was not gonna be a capital item, even though it was approved following that meeting, because it wasn't taken off the town warrant. There's some of these items were discussed, the subcommittee put forward, and it has not been presented to the school committee, a list of expenditures that they recommended. And Dr. Colley was asked about that. This is not that list. If you want to vote this list, fine. I'm not voting for it. I don't see any detail. Not the whole list. Some of these new items, the new expenditures.
Still have the motion. And Dr. Colley, the security and maintenance, that's just a placeholder, obviously, because we haven't,
It approximates the proposals.
all in favor? Well, we got, Mike's motion is to send it to budget. All in favor? No?
No.
Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the expenses and approve them. I'm sorry. I'd like to make a motion to accept the expenses, approve them
As presented.
as presented.
I'll second. Discussion. Any further new discussion?
You do have a few other things that Mr. Sullivan had asked, so if there's any questions of, if you want to swap, let's pay for this and not that. I know that Mike and Kim are here, that's why I included, and this would be in the next item of the agenda, but that's why I also have the 2 quotes on the vehicles.
Discussion?
Yeah, the transfer of cover van purchase is coming out of the sped expenses. Is that correct?
Yep.
So we're transferring from special education department to cover a van that's not special ed, is that correct?
Yes.
So, and then the same with an amount provided for security systems, which I could see that would make sense because everyone's secure in the building. But, I'd again urge fellow committee members to stand true to the commitment we've made on what we will do with unspent special education funding. We've gone publicly and said, this is what we need to maintain a special education department. And in no way are we going to spend that money anywhere else but on our special education students. If in fact we have excessive funds at the end of the year, we will return it to the town. With this vote before you, based on this motion, you're approving a transfer $24,000, the $20,000 out of special education funds to buy a van.
To the motion.
That is the motion. It's contrary to the code that has been established by the Westport School Committee on spending special education funds on unrelated expenses.
That legal, under general ed, is any of that for special education?
More likely, yes.
So
But
is it,
we have it in a different part of the budget.
so is it possible that,
Some of that could be
you know, rather,
transferred. At this time of the year, when we take a look at the monies that are unencumbered in any one line, we start to group it together and just, because you may have $20 in this line, 100 in that one, we start to collect it together to see how much money we have to do these purchases at the end of the year. So whether they come from special ed and we pay more legal out of special ed versus a van, it's, again, I don't know what that amount, that breakdown would be of the legal. We usually get 2 bills.
thank you.
On the motion?
On the motion, continuing discussion on legal expenses, we do have separate line items for sped legal and general ed legal. So if that helps to clarify the discussion on transfer.
Melissa?
I think it's potential that we could go back and forth in regards to that $20,000 and taking it out of sped education, but I mean, you could potentially do this analysis of what is the special education, and I understand that, what Mr. Sullivan is saying. But it would seem that there's potentially other special ed expenses that we're taking out of general ed.
We will.
And just remind the members that the van and the truck purchases were approved at town meeting. So by us purchasing them now, it just, I mean, you know, I hate to say it, but same thing, only different. So we're just buying it with our money as opposed to giving it back to the town and then the town buying the van.
Plus interest.
Mr. Sullivan?
Superintendent, did we have 2 vehicles on the town meeting capital
Yes.
request?
2
I think we had
vehicles.
1 that was approved.
2. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Approval of policies. Oh, do you want to do the bread? We're going to go to C, Dr. Collins.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Michelle. No, we need to approve the bids for
Approval
bread
of,
and milk
bread,
and
milk,
gummies.
dairy, ice cream, groceries, and pizza bids for
All the
year
goodies.
2013, 2014.
Yes, this is the time of year when we go out to bid for our goods and services for the school lunch program. We had actually a few different new vendors that participated this year, which we haven't in the past. For the bread vending, for the bread products, we had 3 different vendors, which was East Baking Company out of Holyoke, Mass. They're about 113 miles away. They actually did come in the lowest bidder. They were about 6% down.
And they're going to deliver?
They are. I called for recommendations and all.
What's the name of the company?
They're called East Baking Company of Holyoke, Mass. I called for recommendations, and I received the highest of recommendations from the 3 school districts that I called on. Time, delivery, service, customer service, product, and their prices were 6% down from the current vendor we're dealing with right now. So based on that information, I mean, I did the mileage, I did the route, what it looked like. They do travel basically highway coming here. They told me that the bread delivery is very early in the morning, that one of the school districts said that they were there too early. They called them the next morning, they had adjusted their times and made sure that they were not there before, you know, they've never had a time issue. They had a couple of product issues in the time that they've used them over the total of 3 years, so. And what basically happens at this point, we go with them because they are the lowest bidder after looking at recommendations. If for some reason, whether it's quality, whether it's pricing, whether it's the product, whether it's timing, if they fail after 3 different times of being notified, they're sent a letter basically at the 3rd time saying we are no longer using their service, and during that time, I've already picked up the next bidder that was close, you know, that was the second bidder in line. So,
Have we ever had to do that?
I'm sorry?
Have we ever had to do that?
Yes, I did. I had to do that with the lending service 2 years ago. So,
And it's typical of these contracts.
yeah, it's typical. So basically, we had Homestead Bakery of East Providence, who we used last year, and we had Fantini's of Haverhill, Mass. So I'm recommending the East Baking Company I'm recommending them for the bread service for this year. Milk and dairy products, we had 2 vendors that participated in bidding this year, was Gorlick Farms of Lynn and Lecomte's Dairy of Somerset. Lecomte's again came in the lowest bidder. Their pricing this year was only 2 cents above last year's price per milk carton. So last year, I think we were at 21 cents. This year, they're at 23 cents. It's a family-owned business. We've had them for years. Their service, their, you know, just their product, everything, that we've never had a problem with them whatsoever. So
Were you expecting a higher increase in the milk and?
no, milk I wasn't, because milk has been pretty consistent over the last 5 years, that they may have gone up a penny or two, but they've never had a drastic increase. Bless you. I know that the Department of Education right now with USDA, we do a lot of purchasing of government food and products, and they're looking to come up with milk as being one of their purchases for government.
What does that mean?
It's been what happens is right now, like we have commodities that we purchase from the government, and what happens is they give us a list of what it is that's available every single month. Well, what they're trying to do now is part of that government commodity order, they're trying to come up with milk being on that list. It's been very difficult because it's been in the works. I believe this is their 3rd year that they've been trying to do that, but it's very hard to. Milk expires with the cartons of milk that we receive. The shelf life is it's very short, and I think they're really struggling to come up with something. I haven't heard a lot more about it since last year, but I know that's right now. I mean, we probably sell a day. We're probably selling anywhere about 1,200 to 1,400 cartons of milk a day.
So I don't want to throw you off on a tangent, but has there been any talk about increasing the size of the milk cartons?
We can't.
I mean, on the government side, on the state side?
No,
or
not at all.
no?
They went down.
No, I know they went down, but
They went back down, so it's 8 ounces is the limit. If anything, you're going to see things taken away before you're going to see anything given back. And that's with 1% milk. That's not even going skim milk.
okay.
Ice cream and frozen yogurt products, they had 2 vendors that came in again, was Gorlick Farms and New England Ice Cream. Gorlick Farms has won for probably the last 4 years, and their prices, they basically stayed the same. There wasn't even an increase, I found. I found that it was just about almost identical to last year's prices. Pizza, we are going with Domino's Pizza this year. There was a decrease of 14 cents per pizza. We were paying $4.64, and Domino's Pizza came in at $4.50 per pizza. And that's serving whole wheat pizza only. So we do 51% whole wheat. Papa Gino's was quite surprised that Domino's even came in with that, because they really didn't feel that Domino's was going to be able to come up with a whole wheat pizza, because they have to order it so many days in advance, so you have to give them your pizza order ahead of time, otherwise they can't meet the 51% whole wheat. But they did a lot of PR work the last couple of months. And as far as groceries go, I did notice an increase in their bills from last year.
there's been an increase of about 3 to 6% for the cost of groceries. And we don't go with just one grocery product company. We go with four. These are the four vendors that came in, which was Costas, PFG, Thurston Foods, and Original Pizza. And for instance, Thurston's Foods comes from Connecticut. And we don't have any problems with their orders or their shipments or deliveries. And once in a great while, they might have a truck breakdown and they might be calling us saying they're coming at 1:30. And usually Helena will go down and check the order in if the staff has left already at that time. But, you know, as far as shipment, you know, when I looked at that, I knew that I have some other companies that come from about the same distance and we haven't had problems. You know, they're usually pretty good to make up for their time or, you know, to offer a credit if there was something that was due that day. Basically, I mean, I know that with this year we are going with a 25% increase for the cost of lunch this year, which creates about a $17,000 increase in revenue. Prior to this increase, we were not even covering the cost of the school lunch. So this coming increase for the new school year will be able to finally cover the cost of the school lunch. And I've also signed up with the town farm to participate in a farm to school project, but we start to purchase more fruits and vegetables from our local farmers. So that is something that I am on schedule for starting in September. We did do a little bit of it this past September with Orr's Farm on Adamsville Road. We were purchasing some fresh produce from him and fresh vegetables, and we are hoping to do a larger turnover in September to start to get more of, so it's not looking as if it's purchased items as much as, you know, we're looking into purchasing like chicken breast, regular chicken breast, us taking that and turning it into whatever the meals are, and not as much of the processed foods. We still have to provide a certain percentage, it's like 30-something% that needs to be on every plate that comes from the government, which although they decide what you put on the plate, a lot of the government food comes basically canned or frozen, and you know, we still have to provide that in order to participate in the school lunch program for the reimbursement. I did recently apply for the extra, there's the 6 cents reimbursement that we receive for every meal for school lunch reimbursement. You had to apply for that. In order to go through that process, you had to do food analysis of every meal that you serve to come up with carb count, sodium count, saturated fat count. There's a huge amount of work that went into that. He's laughing at me because it took weeks. I did send it out. I have not heard anything back yet. That's a one-time process that we do. We do it this one time. Once it comes back, if there are any corrections, I believe it's 60 days to make any corrections, send it back to them to be able to be approved to earn the extra 6 cents per reimbursable meal. So I am hoping that in the next 30 days I will hear back on that, and that'll generate probably about another $12,000 of revenue.
And that would be ongoing.
And then it'll be ongoing. We'll never have to participate in that again. For now, until they change something else. One of the other things that we are looking, I know it's a little sidetracking off of this, but it's something I just wanted to say so that anyone's aware of it. A lot of people come out and they ask questions because of these new guidelines that are going on as far as carb count goes and sodium count and saturated fat. One of the things that I am trying to do over the summer is to hire one of my own part-time staff to come in for up to 200 hours to take every item that we purchase, whether it be milk, whether it be pizza, whatever it is, and our school lunch POS system that we have, I want to have every item entered so that we start using the program to the fullest capacity, and that is to be able to build our school menus through the items purchased, where parents can find out what the carb count is for any of the students that we have that diabetes, to be able to incorporate more gluten-free items onto the menu. But parents can go to these menus and be able to look at them and say, you know, I know this is how many carbs, this is how much sodium that's in there, and they're able to have a little bit more of a breakdown. A lot of the schools are doing about the same thing. They're starting to come out with that. A lot of times you have to call up to get that information, but if this information is entered one time, only new items need to be entered at that point, and it gives a chance for you know, to try to meet the regulations that are out there now, it just helps tie in everything together. I think it makes it a little bit easier for building meals, and it also helps to make sure that we're compliant with the new regulations at the same time. It's kind of like a double check system. So that is something that, you know, the cost of that is probably going to be for the summer, maybe $1,200 to $1,300 to hire someone to come in to do that, and that would come out of the school lunch revolving.
Melissa?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the bread, milk, and dairy, ice cream, groceries, and pizza bids for school year 2013-14.
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was that report I helped you with, right?
Yeah, when you were wearing your tie still, Tony. You can come back, though, when they send it back to me, it needs to be corrected.
Okay, G, item G, policy, approval of policies.
One question.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Is there any changes to any of these?
Some of them have red lines in them. All of these were reviewed recently. Actually, it's on their May 30th. Some of them were just reviewed with no changes suggested. And then the ones that have any changes suggested are red line.
So there was a change made to BH, Mike?
Yeah, of the Bs, I think that's the only one that got changed. Minor edit.
And then CCR, there were some more changes.
CCR.
Were some of these policies changed in regards to like the benefits where it says 10 days, 15 days? And I'm sorry, this is code CCR.
Mm-hmm.
Were those changes or you're just adding it to the policy? Were these already in place?
Dr. Colley could probably answer that better, but it was, CCR was, what we were actually doing, we were just kind of bringing CCR up to date. And it hadn't been changed in a while. So we're just kind of bringing CCR into kind of what's actually been...
What's happening.
What's been going on, yeah.
And one of the things we've been doing over the last few years is if there's any increases percentage-wise, obviously if somebody who's been in the position for quite a while, they're hitting the top end of that scale. And as we had the school committee vote to provide a 1% and perhaps another 1% for some of our administrative staff who are working on their goals and performance. When we start looking at some of those lines, they would be hitting that top end of the scale and going beyond it. So I suggested to the school committee to take a look at it again.
Michael?
Yeah, I appreciate that. The question of if they were already in place, they have no red marks, then we're just updating them. But as we come to CCR, if it's an addition, then there's a new word showing up in red. In some cases, I think there's some changes, and typically we line through what was there And I would ask, for example, under benefits, we've got a red addition of sick leave 15 to 18 days. What was it before? Was it just not there?
I don't think it was.
So, is that,
Right, at the very top?
Well, as a clarification, we were using sick time and personal time were bundled together, and we separated them out. So if anything, it was, we made it clearer.
And under the,
well,
Eh.
it's not clear because
All right, then
what
we'll,
you're saying is we had,
then why don't we
had
put
changes
CCR
that
aside?
took place, so
Fine, yep. So if,
CCR was the only one I came across, but based on the process of coming forward from the policy subcommittee having not been followed, I recommend we return all of these policies to the policy subcommittee to be, to address notation, according to,
well, the only one that's been changed here is CCR. And these
but
were
I don't
just.
know that, so now that I.
No, there's
I
no
asked-
changes in, these have not been changed. These were just reviewed with no changes. So CCR and one sentence on BH, that's the only changes on this list.
So all the others are just review?
Yes.
the eyes
No,
got
there's some
changed.
more.
The eyes is the new part, the
Yeah,
part that
I
we,
see.
The ayes, the next batch, Mike, we're just
And those
approving
are
line number
redlined.
1 right now.
those we did the more traditional red line.
So if,
We can redo the CCR so you can see the red line, so you can see the old and the new, and what got changed.
so we'll put CCR, somebody motion to,
Well, I'll make a motion to send all the policies back to policy subcommittee and present it as a packet at the next meeting.
no second.
I'll second. Discussion. I think it would be helpful to have that, and then this way we can just go through them all and.
You want to accept the ones that were no changes, get those out of the way?
Well, after you said that, one more was added, so that's why I stuck with my motion. We've got a packet of papers that we
Okay.
haven't followed our procedures, and we're gonna handpick the ones we wanna approve. I think we ought to
All right, we
just
got a
follow
motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Request for mask to come for a summer training session for the school committee. This was brought up. Dr. Colley, what do you have on this?
You did. You asked
No,
for that
Melissa
one.
did.
Or Melissa.
But
That
I
may
mean,
be a
I-
time to ask them if they can work with you guys on goals and evaluation protocols.
So we'll get in contact with them and we'll plan something. Like July 4th maybe or something.
Sure.
Okay.
Are you asking me to do that? Is that a
Yes,
vote?
we're directing the superintendent to contact. Yes, you want, yes.
You wanna make, is that
Sure.
a motion you wanna make?
No, we don't need a motion, do we? Just, we'll direct Dr. Colley to contact Mask and schedule a couple of dates, and we'll pick a date and
I will have
get some
them,
chilled water, and we'll have a meeting. We'll have a workshop over it. Will this be a workshop, Dr. Colley, or?
I would say so, because you'd be putting stuff together that may then perhaps go into a regular meeting, for example, approving goals and evaluation protocols.
This will help us with the
Yeah.
school committee goals that we want to set for ourselves. Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, I found it a whole lot more valuable to attend mask training programs that happen throughout the year, both at their annual conference and in our regional, have mailings that come out, and I'm sure there'll be some in the summer. I think we should check with them in the summer. You know, I understand there was a request for goals, but we have our mission
Well, I'm talking
statement.
two different things.
What is?
We're not talking goals, we're talking
Well, you just
mask.
brought up training for our goals.
No, I said it would tie in with that, but we're talking about the, having masks come down into a training session
Just for anything or for the goals?
to make us better.
Okay,
Anything.
well, if, there is a mission statement in our policy handbook. I don't think we need Mass to redirect us there. She asked about a goal, and no one who she asked pointed out, I assume,
Melissa,
that we have some.
enlighten us, please.
There's in our policy, in our education policy, under code BAA, there's an evaluation of school committee operational procedures that we can, it says the school committee will periodically establish realistic objectives, and so on and so forth, that we haven't done. So those are the things that I was talking about that would be good to do. I've been reading, thanks to Tony, with the book that he gave, there's different things that school committees can do to help to build upon teamwork. And I think that it would be a good opportunity, whether it's attending a conference or a workshop or a retreat, I mean, we are limited in budget, so what's the most cost-effective way for us to do that?
If you
Okay.
remember,
We're
I'm
talking
not sure
about
they
professional,
charge you.
professional development here. for
Yeah.
the school committee.
Oh, yes,
It's always
professional
good.
development.
Yeah,
So-
no, again, there is a section of our policy book, self-evaluation of school committee, that was, a school committee previously decided we would not do that, and it hasn't been brought forward on an annual basis. I agree with you that we should be evaluated, but I don't know if we should go to training to how to self-evaluate and create these things if we've said we're not gonna do it previously. I think we need to address whether we're gonna do it before we schedule any training. There is some training sessions on those kind of things that.
All right, well, we'll look into it. We'll look into it, so, okay.
Well, it's under an action item, is okay?
So,
No action?
Dr. Colley is gonna contact Mask, and we'll see what he gets us, and
We're gonna take a vote then, because it's under action.
so we motion Dr. Colley to get us some more information on potential professional development for the school committee from Mask, and inform the committee.
I second that.
Any new discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, routine matters, approval of minutes of Wednesday, May 22nd. We have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes of
May 22nd.
May 22nd.
Second? Second? Discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
School committee business, really nothing here. Magazine. Have some confirmation letters. New business requests. Anyone? Next meeting, new stuff for the next week.
The one request that I have is July 9th. I've heard from a couple of people, but not from anybody else,
Oh,
trying
the
to set,
year-end?
yeah, the closeout.
What day
meeting.
is that, Dr. Colley?
July 9th, I think it's a Wednesday. Everything needs to be down to the town by the 10th. We could do it on the 10th, or we could do it later on Wednesday, or the 9th. I picked one, so it gives Melissa time in the morning to do the last minute bills if there's still any still to trickle in, but the town wants to close the books on FY13 on July 10th.
So July 9th at 5
We
o'clock,
said
6
one.
o'clock?
I heard that,
During the day?
well, I heard Carolina has a hard time coming in the middle of the day. Michelle would like it either earlier or later. Earlier would be difficult for Melissa, and you kind of said whenever.
I
But
said that?
Just something like that.
No more
Forget
sugar.
your actual words.
Yeah, I can't think that far ahead, so I don't know. I'm good, I guess.
Later,
Fine.
oops, sorry. Later would be preferred, but I can do the 1 o'clock if need be, if that's what works.
We can do, the problem is in the summer the custodians leave early, so we're left to fend for ourselves. If we do it before they leave at, what is it, 3:30? So I figured 1 to 3 at the most.
Post it, and I'll give us a date, and you'll know who can be there, and we'll change it.
July 9th,
So the
1
9th,
p.m.
July 9th, 1 p.m.? Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm sure it'll change, but for now, it's good. Mr. Sullivan?
You were in receipt of a correspondence between the superintendent and myself, and there's about 4 items that he concluded that if the chairman wants to put it on the agenda. They weren't on this agenda, so I cannot refer to them because I can't access my email.
I think all those items were, some of those items were on the executive session. Right? That's where they ended up. I don't have that in front of me, that email.
I'm asking you to refer to that. That's right. I can't access that email, but there's items on that that could go on the regular agenda.
You have them with you now? We can bring it up as new business. You can bring it up as new business.
No, you can also, it's not required that you bring it up with new business. I'm mentioning it to you that's also.
Okay, all right, I see what you're saying. So we have some, okay, for next meeting, for the next meeting, yes.
That's what I'm bringing.
I got you, thank you. I was confused. Comments and statements from the public. Get in line quickly. Okay, seeing none? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn and return to,
We have
motion
just
to adjourn.
adjourning. That's a separate meeting.
Okay.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we adjourn, thank you.